Just Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again and welcome to episode 112 of Imagine Theatre's podcast series, and this time we're going to meet a television presenter, entertainer and pantomime legend Bobby Bennett.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
Now, in the last episode, we spoke to Pravesh Kumar, MBE, the writer of Cinderella, a British South Asian pantomime which Imagine is co-producing and embarks on a UK tour this autumn. If you missed it, you can still check it out along with all of the other previous episodes, and don't forget to subscribe to the series so you don't miss out in the future. So far in the series, we've spoken to stars of the pantomime stage, various creative team members, and many, many more. We've looked at specific titles, explored all of the elements that make a panto work, and we've celebrated panto's successes at 3 consecutive UK Pantomime Awards ceremonies. But this time, it's a real treat for me, I can tell you, because we're going to chat to somebody now who is another pantomime legend. He's done everything as an entertainer and as a television presenter, and he's somebody that I remember from my own childhood because he started at the age of 10. Bobby Bennett, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Martin, and thank you for inviting me onto your show today. It's quite a delight.
I'm delighted to talk to you, I have to say, and I'm absolutely right. I think you started at the age of 10 working with the likes of Roy Castle, didn't you?
It was, I really started doing pantomime when I was a child, probably when I was 8 years old. And I lived in Blackpool, and Blackpool had quite a famous children's pantomime which went on every year for a week at the Grand Theatre. And children from all over the Fylde Coast auditioned for this particular pantomime. I joined that when I was 8 years old, although I had done a pantomime the year before for my dancing teacher at the Marine Hall at Fleetwood, which was so from the age of 7, I suppose I got into doing pantomimes. I did those for till I was about 9. And then a gentleman from Cleveland's who put on shows at the Queen's Theatre in Cleveland's, which is near Blackpool, a gentleman called Norman Teal. He used to put shows on with his wife, Mildred Crosley. Their shows were called Happiness Ahead. Mm-hmm. And Norman had an idea for a dreamland sequence in one of his shows and saw me in the pantomime and asked me if I'd like to do it. Well, not knowing the laws and the laws of the land, I said, oh, that'll be lovely. And my parents said, oh, that'll be lovely. So I went and started working my first summer season. It wasn't very long before Norman got on the telephone and said, sorry, but we can't use you in the Dreamland series because you have to be 12 years old and you can't work as a 10-year-old boy. The law in those days said no kids on stage until you're 12 years old. So it wasn't really until I was 12 that I did my first full summer season with Happiness Ahead at the Queen's Theatre in Cleveland's. And that was the first time that I'd been a professional artist getting paid.
And I heard a story that you were paid just £1 for 2 nights a week at Cleveland's, and you did work with Roy Castle, didn't you?
Roy was in the show when I was 10 years old. It didn't last all that long, but I was paid £1 for doing 2 nights. In those days, the smaller theatres, because Cleveland's was a satellite of Blackpool. Blackpool had all the major theatres, and Norman and Mildred put on their show, and they used to do 3 different shows a week. They'd do a Monday, Tuesday show, a different show on Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday, Saturday show. And if you were lucky, you got a Sunday concert out of it as well. So I was engaged to do the Friday and Saturday show, basically because I could work on Friday night and didn't have to get up for school the following morning. So I worked in the Friday and Saturday show with Roy Castle doing the Dreamland sequence. I'll Build a Stairway to Paradise thing. So that was one of the songs, you know.
Before you ever performed in a panto, did you ever remember going to see panto as a child?
Not really, no. Being in the Blackpool Children's Pantomime, that's when I was blooded, if you like, on pantomime. I can't recall ever seeing a pantomime in Blackpool. I think probably I went and saw a show when I was very young. But as I was working with Norman Teal, he suggested to a friend of his that I would be good to do a pantomime in Manchester, when I was 12 years old, I played the mayor's son in the Windsor Theatre in Salford for a gentleman called Jack Gillam pantomimes, I think it was. That was my first professional pantomime as a legitimate performer.
You've got an incredible memory, I have to say. This is about
Yes,
70 years
and
ago, isn't it? But who was in that show? Can you remember?
Bud Weston, Gwen West. Bud Weston and Gwen West were married. There was a rather crotchety guy who played the squire, because my mother was a chaperone, used to chaperone me, and she used to ask her if he'd go round to the pub next door and get him his pop bottle filled with beer. So, they used to have all these lovely little stories.
I think it was 1964 Opportunity Knocks, wasn't it? And the interesting thing about that is that you actually beat somebody else who became a panto legend, Freddie Parrotface Davis. But how did you get into Opportunity Knocks?
I had actually worked with Hughie Green when I was 14. I auditioned for Opportunity Knocks, which was then on. It was on radio.
Mm-hmm.
It was on. I think it was on.
It was on Radio Luxembourg, wasn't it?
Yeah, Radio Luxembourg, and I went to audition in Manchester, and it was. I worked with Hughie as a young singer, and I used to sing "I'll Walk with God," which was a Mario Lenzo thing that I used to sing, and I used to do a sketch with Hughie, and so I knew him, and I'd worked summer seasons with him. I did a summer season, and but never a pantomime. Did all sorts of things with Hughie. And then, of course, with after my boy soprano voice broke, I went out of the business, and I took a job delivering televisions in Blackpool. Basically, when I got my voice back, I decided that I would give Hughie a ring and ask his advice to see what he thought I should do, which I did. And he said, "We're doing auditions for Opportunity Knocks, which is going to be on television next year at the Piccadilly Hotel in Manchester, if you'd like to come down on Sunday." So I was very lucky that I picked that week to speak to him. And I went down and did my audition with everybody else at the Piccadilly Hotel. Bobby said, "I'm very pleased with you." He said, "You got a nice little act there. I'll put you on the show." So that was me, and the rest was history. I went on. It was July the 11th, was it? 1964, and I was the second ever winner on Opportunity Knocks, and won for 6 weeks.
Wow!
And beat Freddie Davis in the course of my 6 weeks of winning.
Yeah,
I remember Freddie coming into the show because the story was that we were doing. I think it was week 4. And there was a comic who'd been given the go-ahead to go on the show by the director, not by Hughie Green. And Hughie said, "Who booked this guy onto my show?" And just said, "Well, he's not going on. You'd better go out and find me a better comic for tomorrow's show." The producer went out into Manchester in the evening and saw Freddie working in a club and said, "Freddie, would you come and help us out?" Which, of course, he came on the following day. And that was the first time that I'd met Freddie Davis, and the first time I'd seen Freddie Davis. Of course, my thoughts were, Okay, Bobby, that's you finished because this guy is absolutely brilliant.
Mm.
And his style and Mr. Parrotface was an obvious winner. I was fortunate enough to beat Freddie on that particular week by 60 votes, which was, he's never forgiven me about that at
So by
all.
this time, you'd sort of built up a variety act because you were an all-round entertainer. You did
Yeah,
comedy,
that's right.
you danced, you sang, you did pretty much everything. So did that open the door then to start more Panto as a senior performer now?
Yes, I think 1966, that was the first time that I'd done pantomime with Huey. And that was at the Regal Theatre in Edmonton in London. And it was a cinema. And it was Huey had taken the Regal cinema because he was so big at that particular time. He got the biggest theatre he could, and the Regal at Edmonton held 3,500 people. So we
Wow.
did this show at the Regal Edmonton, and he said, "I got a great idea." I said, "Because by that time I was 18 years old." And he said, "I want you to play Babe in Babes in the Wood." He said, I've got a young Welsh girl called Dino who's got a fabulous voice, sings like Shirley Bassey. And with you doing your impressions and her singing like Shirley Bassey, we have two of the most talented babes ever. So we went into that particular production as Babes in the Wood, which, to be honest, I hated, but it was the way Huey worked in those days. Basically, my pantomime career started after that time. And from 1967, I worked with for Jerry Jerome down in Portsmouth and South Sea. And so it all started from 1966.
A couple of years later, I'll take you back to 1969 then, because something that absolutely changed your life, and that's where I first came across you as an 8-year-old boy. I was obsessed with
Yeah,
what was a variety show specifically for children.
yeah,
There'd never been anything like it at all. It
yeah,
was on ITV for 3 or 4 years. I think no,
yeah,
5 years maybe. It ended in 74, didn't it?
yeah,
And it was at the Leeds City Varieties Theatre. It was
yeah,
called Junior Showtime,
yes.
and that was just an incredible program, wasn't it?
Well, the way that that came about, obviously, I did the pantomime in '66. In '67, I did a summer season at the Gaiety Theatre in Rhyl in North Wales. I was with Eddie Calvert, who was the man with the golden trumpet.
Yeah.
Dougie Clark was the other comic on the show, and Des King was the magician. The trio that the management had booked turned out that two of them couldn't read music, so they had to do something very, very quickly. And they got this portly gentleman who came into the theatre and said, "Right, you want this bloody show saving, do you?" And he sat at the organ. He played the organ for us for 8 weeks, for the whole of the summer season.
I think I
And
can
then
guess who this man is.
I think you know who that one is. That was Jess himself.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't until 1968, and I was working down in London at a place called the Showboat Restaurant, which was in Trafalgar Square, and I got a call from please phone Jeff Yates at Yorkshire TV. And I thought, who's Jeff Yates? Anyway, I phoned this number, and he said, "It's me, Jess." He said, "I worked with you last year in Rhyl." He said, "I've got an idea for you." And that was how Junior Showtime was born. He'd seen me doing the show in Rhyl all through the summer. As far as I'm aware, I think I was third choice. Yeah, I think he wanted Roy Castle first, and then Wally Whiten was another one who came up, and then me. But I think they were both working, so I got the job, I think.
Just for our younger listener who
Yeah,
doesn't go back that far, Jess Yates was absolutely massive in television, particularly in the 1970s. He was also Paulie Yates' dad,
yeah,
and he put this program together. And for anybody, and sadly, I don't think any of these programs still exist, but just to give you an idea of the people who came through it, they included the likes of Bonnie Langford and Joe Longthorne and Mark
Mhm.
Curry and people like Lisa Stansfield,
Mhm.
somebody that I know or knew very well because sadly she died recently, Catherine Apanovich,
Yeah,
Pauline Quirk. This show was just an amazing
yeah.
open door for young talent, wasn't it?
That's right. There was quite a lot of people, and we had some. One that I remember very well was a young lady called Sylvestra the Toozle, and she came on and sang Edith Piaf's song "Me Lord,"
Mhm.
and I thought this girl is really going to be a big star, and she's done so many different things in the world of musical theatre. She's the one that I thought would make it. But there are a lot of kids who came through those doors. We always said we never refused an audition to anybody. We used to audition 3-year-olds. So we could sit there for hours listening to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and things like that. So that's why we got lots of really talented youngsters, and it was a pleasure for me to see him because I'd been a youngster myself. I'd done all the children's entertaining and all that, so I knew what it was like, and I knew how a lot of the kids felt when they went on television for the first time. The most important thing for me was to get what we were doing on the show right, and get all the music right, and
There were featured performers who were regulars and mainstays, and Glyn Poole was another of those. And of course, he and his family had also won Opportunity Knocks, hadn't they?
That's correct. Yes, Glenn was. He was just had that lovely little face that everybody liked, and he had a quirky little personality. In one sense, I think he sort of outdid all the rest of his brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Who when we used them all as a family, it was lovely. But of course, Jess wanted to have just Glyn. So that was one of the things that happened on the show.
On recent podcasts, we've been talking about cross-dressing in Panto, and we'll get on to your Dame in a moment's time. But
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, in Junior Showtime, of course, the original Old Mother Riley, Arthur Lucan, had stopped performing by this stage. But my memory is that another sort of Old Mother Riley, I think it was Roy Rowland, actually appeared
Right.
with Kitty in Junior Showtime, didn't he?
That's right. Yes, it was Jess's association with North Wales, and Roy Roland lived in North Wales, quite close to where Jess lived. So I think they were good friends, and it was Jess as the producer. He was quite right to bring anybody he wanted onto the show. It was nice to have something different, on the show, and. We as it went on, it developed into something different. You see, because we'd come out of the city varieties and into the studio, so the studio shows became more theme based than they would be as a theatre show.
There are almost 200 episodes, and I don't think any of them still exist.
I do know about 20 years ago there was one or two knocking around. I believe that I think Mark Curry might have a copy of one. But having said that, it's memories that I have personally of the show that are most important.
Yeah, and for all the kids that watched as well, I mean, incredible memories. But obviously, your career in variety and entertainment was developing all the time, and so was your panto career. Now, you've done
Yeah.
more than
Well,
50 pantos, haven't you?
the pantos really started in the 60s. It's all in the book that is not yet published, and the book is lying on my daughter's bookcase.
Right.
The pantomime book is completed, and I can't for the life of me think of some of the dates now. When I first started, I was playing Silly Billy and models and the comic in it. And I did that for many years. It was 1969. I worked for Albemarle, which was Basil Critchley. And his company was a terrific pantomime company. It was really, really good. He had some wonderful scenery. And I did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs for Basil for quite some time. And I worked with Dana. Denise Nolan was another Snow White who I worked with. After that, Basil wanted me to go to the Manchester Palace with Dana. For some reason, the manager of the theatre didn't want me because he didn't think I was a big enough name to grace the Manchester Palace with. So I was basically I was given the boot of that particular show, and it was only then when the guy who was putting the show on for at the Bradford Alhambra, it was international artists.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I understand that you're not doing a pantomime this year. I said, that's correct. He said, well, I've heard that you're quite a good dame. So I said, well, I've only ever done it once, and I did it for my agent, Norman Murray, up in Newcastle. I said, I've done it once and said, and I enjoyed it. He said, well, I'm looking for a dame to do Bradford Alhambra with David Essex. It was Robin Crusoe. Oh, I said, that would be really nice. So, of course, that led me into 9 consecutive pantomimes with David, doing Robinson Crusoe and playing Henrietta's City Bot Home, which was perhaps the highlight of all my pantomimes, right the way through, all the 55 of them, you know.
Of all the dames that you've played, which is your favourite dame character?
What I've just said, I really enjoyed playing Henrietta. She could be quite feisty, as well as being a cuddly dame as well. I always like to play dame as a cuddly person, somebody who the audience would like to take home as their mum, and cuddle her.
Yeah.
So that's always been the guidelines that I've used for that. But because Henrietta became the captain of the ship, she had to have a uniform on. She had to be authoritative as well. So I enjoyed that one. It was that perhaps was the best dame that I actually did.
55 pantos is incredible, but what did you love about it so much, Bobby? What was the joy of panto for you?
I think the secret was the fact that I started doing pantomime at such an early age. Pantomime was the first show, basically, that I ever did. So therefore, pantomime became the thing of the year for me. Something that I always looked forward to. And the fact that I'd done it in so many different ways and different characters and different parts. The one thing that I sort of think about, I never got the opportunity in pantomime to play the baddie. And I would have loved to have played the baddie. I mean, I've worked with some terrific baddies, all the way through, right from the word go. I mean, I remember when one of the early ones was a guy called John Gower, who played Abenazer, and oh my God, he really was. They hated him, and of course Maurice Thorogood has always been my favourite baddie, who played the pirate in David Essex's one, Bluebeard. But I would have loved to have done that at some point had I been given the opportunity. But I mean, the whole thing about pantomime is the fact that it gives a child the opportunity to go to a theatre and sit in a seat and see things that they would like to see, and they connect with it quite easily. And all the shouting back and the communication that you have with pantomime, it's a family show that involves the family, and that's one of the things that really makes it, for me, the best type of theatre entertainment that you can go and see.
And a lot's changed since those days. I don't think there are many dames these days who would turn up with Carmine and number 5 and number 9 stick and so on.
A comedian who, like Les Dawson, for instance, he never used to put any makeup on at all.
Hmm.
He'd just stick a wig on top of his head and put a frock on. And basically, he was still Les Dawson, but he was the Dame. I always made up as a Dame, and it was a proper job for me. But I mean, I look on my phone, Facebook, and see different productions being advertised, and I just see the Dames getting younger.
Panto has an awful lot to thank Junior Showtime for, because I think pretty much every one of those kids that came through Junior Showtime has gone on to have a really good Panto career.
Oh yes, that was because we used to do panto style production numbers. We involved everybody not only in doing their own little spot, but we involved them in doing the production numbers with us. And of course, the person who made that possible was Jean Pierce, who was our choreographer on Junior Showtime. And she had her dancing school in Leeds, and of course the kids who we had every week in the chorus lines sort of came from her school, and they were really well trained, and so we were onto a winner with Jean, and of course a lot of the stuff that she did on the show went unnoticed, but it really was good.
Well, we're looking forward to your book when it does come out, Bobby, I have to say, but I can tell how much you miss it, because it was such a major part of your life, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I stopped doing it because of ill health, and there's no likelihood that that's going to get any better. But um, and age has beaten me, so I suppose really to say that I did 55 years or 55 pantomimes, it was not a bad score, really.
No, you're
I
absolutely
think,
right. I did 30, and I thought that was quite an achievement. To get to
yeah,
55 is
yeah.
absolutely incredible.
The last few that I did for Ron Martin down at Wimborne, what a lovely little theatre that was, and what a lovely little company that Ron had. And it was nice to sort of like in the twilight of my career, right, to have such a professional type of pantomime in a small theatre with basically Nina's dancing school provided the members of the ensemble, and Ron got professionals in to do the major speaking parts, and it was a cracking little panto. I loved doing it there to finish off. And I was quite happy to say, right, well, now's the time to walk away from it.
So, Bobby, after 55 pantos, 20 plus as Dame, I have to ask you, and you mentioned Robinson Crusoe already, and that was your favourite Dame, but is that also your favourite pantomime title as a story?
That's the most difficult question you've asked me. For some reason, I've never ever done Cinderella. And believe it or not, Cinderella is my favourite story of all the pantomimes. Never played buttons. I've been Idle Jack, Simple Simon, I've been Silly Billy, Bobby Goose, but I never ever played buttons. And I would have loved to have played buttons.
What is it about the story you like?
I've just realised I did Cinderella at the Bradford Alhambra, and I played Ugly Sister.
Ah,
Now then, I just realised that, and I did it with. I don't know whether you remember a lovely London comic called Dave Lee.
I do.
You remember
I
Big
do.
Dave, and he was like 6'2", and I was 5 foot nothing, and we had. If I remember rightly, we got the costumes from Stanley Baxter's show up at the Glasgow Pavilion. Angus Lenny was the other ugly sister up there, and I remember having this fantastic costume as a set of golf clubs. It was fantastic.
I mean, many
Anyway,
people might remember Angus Lenny, who you said worked with Stanley Baxter. Angus Lenny was very famous. He did lots of movies and stuff, but he was Shuey McPhee in Crossroads for a long time.
Shuey McPhee, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
And
yeah, going back to the story, what is it about the Cinderella story that you like?
it's just the princess and the prince, isn't it? And good over evil. all the pantomimes are all lovely stories, and it's all, the prince gets his princess. I mean, I enjoyed Dick Whittington. I used to love doing Idle Jack and Wishy Washy. It's all pretty much of a muchness for the but Buttons was the one where you could do that lovely scene with Cinderella where he pledges his love, and then she tells him that she's in love with the prince.
It's the only one, isn't it? The only one of the
Yeah.
comic roles where you can play that pathos,
You
where
got that.
you get the sympathy
only
as
one
well.
where you get that bit of pathos. I'll tell you the funny story now. We were doing Dick Whittington at the Southport Theatre. I was doing it for Tommy Trafford and Ronnie Parnell. And I was playing Idle Jack. And my wife at the time, Elaine St. Clair, her name was, and I'm pledging my love to her in one scene. And she says, "Jack, can you keep a secret?" I said, "Of course I can." And at the time, Elaine was about 3 months pregnant. She just had a tiny little bump. And one of the scene, she said, "Jack, can you keep a secret?" And I said, "Of course I can keep a secret." And she whispers in my ear. And I just stood back and I said, "Oh, so you love Dick, do you?" and somebody in the audience shouted out, "We can see she does."
What an incredible story. I mean, you've had a fabulous career, both on television as an entertainer in Variety and in Panto, of course. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Bobby. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, it's been a great pleasure for me to actually talk about pantomime. The career that I've had in pantomime has been worth every little breath that I've taken, and it's been a fabulous career. And may pantomime carry on, and long may it live in the hearts and the theatres of all the people. Thanks a lot.
That's a fabulous sentiment, Bobby. Thank you once again. It's been so much fun. Let's do it again in the future because there's so much of your career we haven't talked about. But thank you once again.
Okay, Martin. Thank you very much indeed.
And with that, we've run out of time. That's it for another episode, I'm afraid. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting the podcast series. Don't forget to subscribe through your favourite podcast app and make sure you spread the word to anybody you know who loves pantomime. Next time, we're going to go behind the scenes at the Imagine Theatre photo shoots once again. So join me, Martin Ballard, next time for episode 113.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.